like, oh my god, how do you deal with this champion? But Goldcoin is very practiced on it, and they're executing well, being able to kind of send those Maokai ultimates up to cut off a lot of key choke points around objective control, which is one of the things that, like we said, Santorin loves to do. Already, though, we see that Caitlyn banned away. Like we were saying, with Revan, he does not particularly shine on the Caitlyn pick. That one's taken off. We haven't seen him on Kalista too much, I don't believe.
So.
And I would be interested to see if that's something that's going to remain a really high priority pick for Tempo Storm. It was basically first pick status, taken first in Game 2 and Game 3. We'll have to see what happens this time around. Yeah, GCU not wanting to give up that Alawi pick at all.
Nope, no Alawi whatsoever this game. And I want to see what the jungle match was going to be, because Santorin, I mean, last split we were kind of harping on him for his zoning Rengar ultimates, but the Maokai is a champion that when you use a zoning ultimate wins you a fight.
It's supposed to,
yeah, it's supposed to do.
Yeah, so I mean, that's exactly the situation. You see the Maokai is going to be able to go through here. GCU very intelligently bans out the Jace. While there's all these supposed OP bans and this and that, you can't give them Cho'Gath on the current meta. It's important to play your opponent as well. And if Quas is going to go even with the Cho'Gath, that's fine. He's not in this crazy weird thing that you don't know how to deal with later in the game. So it's much more important to limit that Jace, limit that Alawi, and limit that Zac pick.
And then we'll see what the first pick overall is going to be. Does Revan play the Kalista, or are they going to prioritize it? Looks like Tempo Storm will wind up picking that one up for themselves. So now we know that Freeze wasn't in there just for the Kalista pickup. He's in there for some other sort of reason from Tempo Storm, but Revan's going to be picking this one up for himself. Like you mentioned before, I believe it's going to be the first time we see him playing it throughout the Challenger Series. And let's see how he stacks up against Rikara on the bot side.
The thing, too, is even with the Caitlyn, the Corki band out, there's still a lot of options for Rikara. They're going to break up the Thresh Kalista combo again here, did it in Game 2. And then you have things like the Tristana. You might see those kind of go up in priority a little bit just because we did see a lot of 80 carry bans recently with some of these matchups.
Well, we did see the Tristana and the Jhin being banned away by Goldcoin United last game, so when Freeze didn't have his 80 carry quite yet and they took the Kalista away, they banned out the Tristana, who normally does very well into it in the lane, and then the Jhin, who's just really annoying, specifically with the lethality buffs more recently. But looks like they maybe want to be thinking about taking the Jhin away for themselves. Not necessarily sure how he does specifically in the Kalista. Kalista, of course, when she gets the right support, can be labeled in a bully lane. Jhin himself, you know, it's a little bit hard to lock down a target that's going to be jumping all over the place.
It was traditionally not considered a great matchup. Things flipped around as the item breakpoints came differently. When lethality was super cheap and easy to get, Jhin was actually considered decent into Kalista just because you power spike so hard off that serrated Dirk, and Kalista isn't quite there. Now it's probably in a little bit of a different state because that was before Kalista came back into the meta so strongly with the play of the Rune King. Though we do see once again lethality is meta again, so it's hard to say exactly. It's the first time seeing it on 7-14, I believe, for us. Now, that said, this does give over the Galio counter pick to Tempo Storm, but this is potentially playing into what we said was a weakness of Tempo Storm, which is that they don't necessarily play with these picks that well.
Right, and they don't necessarily play with the tanks on the top side of the map unless, you know, it was the Cho'Gath being played by Quath in the last game, so not necessarily known for wanting to, you know, conform to like the tank top lane meta, so this potentially could be a mid lane Galio coming out from Selfie, which again limits his carry potential a little bit.
Exactly the point I was about to make. Just if it's Quas on it, great. It's a standard champion. You can't do any crazy shenanigans to you. If it goes to Selfie, you know, it's a super strong pick, but it's not exactly his playstyle. I'm sure he'll play it fine. The criticism is not on Selfie. It's on what the team needs out of Selfie, which is a lot of individual carry play. So obviously, I love the Gnar pick right away. Gets him a good matchup into the Galio, assuming that you play that matchup correctly. And then if they flex it away from the Gnar, it's still one of Solo's signature champions, and you're probably putting Tempo Storm in a position they don't exactly want to be.
Exactly, and some of the open Quas champions to kind of go to are the Swain, which, you know, the Gnar will do okay into. You know, you don't have to win that lane outright against the Swain. You could dominate, you know, just through CS and then eventually make it into a team fight phase. But it looks like during the second ban phase, GCU will be focusing down a little bit more on the jungle pool. He at least does get banned away now that Tempo Storm hasn't prioritized that jungle pick. Whereas the opposite side, Tempo Storm are going to be trying to limit some of these mid lane matchups here, potentially getting something for Selfie that's advantageous.
Something that they can definitely be looking for. I like the Jax ban as well. We saw Quas play that into, I believe it was Dyrus's Gnar, and they ganked it pretty heavily and snowballed that matchup. So heads up on that play because, of course, like we said, Fly can take that, or excuse me, Selfie can take that Galio pick. And I'm a little bit, I actually like the Elise ban as well because you don't have any priority on it if you're GCU. You're just going to play the Maokai over and over and over. The fact that Tempo Storm does not ban it out, great, you take the Maokai. If they did ban the Maokai out, you probably just take the Gragas as well and keep saving that mid lane counter pick. Instead, looks like they're changing things up, going for the Sejuani. Now, this is surprising to me given the fact that we don't really see anything that different out of Tempo Storm that would say, oh, we need something other than the Maokai, because I believe that they already took the Kalista Blitzcrank bot lane once, or they've had similar things before.
It was game number 2 where they wound up winning.
Yeah, so it's not a totally new look, and GCU sees something different here to say why they don't want Maokai.
Yeah, so going for the Sejuani instead, maybe it's just because they have the Jin, which isn't necessarily more of a team fight champion. You want to set up these kind of pick potential things, and you know, well, even then, Maokai still has some really good gank assistance on that, but we'll see what the Sejuani winds up doing this time around, as it will be a Victor picked up in the mid lane for Selfie, so that will solidify Quas on the tanky top lane Galio pickup, and we'll have to see what the last response coming out from GCU is as two of the champions being banned away from the mid lane pool from Fly. You might just want to go back to that Vladimir, and if there's a repeat performance in game number 3, that's going to be great for GCU.
And the difference is this time around that while Vladimir against Zed is a relatively even pre-6 laning phase, and then you need to be a little bit worried about the all-in threat that comes from the Ignite, this time around, Victor does just have like a decent matchup versus the Vladimir. Has really easy wave clear, especially once you hit that first item back where you get your Hex Core upgrade. You know, it can lead to a situation where you're on your back foot a little bit here, and that can open you up to some jungle invades and things like that if you don't have priority around the mid lane. We'll have to see how that works out, though. I do like Tempo Storm's team comp as a holistic look at it. You have magic damage, you have tankiness, you have playmaking, you have everything you'd ever want in a team comp. It's just about going out there and executing. The question is this the team comp that they like to execute? Is this Tempo Storm's bread and butter? Doesn't quite seem like it.
Not entirely. If it's just in the hands of another team, then it would be fairly standard, fairly straightforward, fairly strong team composition. Do have a lot of team fight potential, though. The Blitzcrank can start things off, or he can get thrown into the fray. Rek'Sai can use that flash on Burrow, and you have the Galio to follow up after it. But like you mentioned, is that Tempo Storm's playstyle? It hasn't been so far, and we'll see how they do to try to execute that against GCU, who have very similar comp to last game, just a different ADC and a different jungler.
The one thing I do like about Tempo Storm is that Selfie is now on just kind of a standard mid lane mage, which is something he plays extremely well. And this gives him late game, you know, kind of hyper scaling threat where if they end up in a game that's closer come 30 minutes, which to be fair, we haven't seen that much of this series overall. But if they do end up in a kind of close game come late game, he will have that kind of late game carry potential for himself. Not quite around the Jace, though they did snowball at that time. Obviously with the Karma and the Zed, not at all. If it heads late. So this time around, this is something that, you know, as long as he goes even or slightly winning the matchup, I think this plays much better into his play style. The question is, though, like you said, for GCU, this is a comp that they just executed extremely well. Last game, you swap out the Maokai for the Sejuani. Some very different mechanics in terms of the length of the engage and the explosiveness of it. The ultimate that comes in for Sejuani, much more aggressive in a sense than the Maokai one, which is more zoning focused. So they, like you said, maybe they are targeting more pick potential, but it's still very close to the same comp they just played last game.
Man, I'm actually interested in the fact that they prioritize taking the Thresh away from Sheep rather than matching it with the Braum, which they had done previously. Though, you know, the Braum's kind of been hit or miss. So far, they won games and lost games while utilizing the Braum pickup here. Or actually, no, the Thresh game is one they wound up losing, but they don't go for the Braum, who actually helps by proccing that Sejuani passive, and you kind of get the double stun ability from that.
Very strong combination, but this time around, your team early took the Kalista, the Thresh is up. You don't want to give up the Kalista Thresh bot lane, which just basically smacks most bot lanes around, especially once you take Caitlyn out of the picture. So I can understand, you know, going for that Thresh. It also does work decently well with the Jhin, a champion that does not have much mobility for himself, and so with that lane turn, you're able to pull him out of some situations that would normally be lethal for Jhin. And now, luckily, though, we get to see our first look at the new Jhin with all the lethality buffs. We haven't actually seen it yet in the 6 games we've cast of the 7-14 Challenger Series.
Yeah, so you have Duskblade Drakthar being buffed up. The Ghostblade gives him a little bit of extra mobility as well. So even though he is a very immobile person who actually just has to stand still for a lot of his abilities to be cast, specifically his ultimate, he will have the ability to give that for a little bit of extra added position advantage. We saw the Misfortune utilizing that build, but we'll see what Jhin winds up building this.
That was exactly the champion I was going to point out, is that there's plenty of champions who like to stand still, but it's important to get into the right place at the right time, and that's something that Ghostblade can help out with, especially with Jhin having that kind of cooldown on his reload after his 4th shot. Not much to do during that time. It's the perfect chance to pop that Ghostblade and get a little bit of move speed and get into the right spot to, you know, start firing away again or kite out. So the build does still make a lot of sense for Jhin, and hopefully we get to see a pretty impressive performance out of it, because I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah, well, we haven't had our own Ghostblades built yet, but we've been able to use our graphic to move out of the way so we could jump into game number 4 here in the back screen for you guys. Gold Coin United are up 2-1 in this best of 5 series. Tempo Storm, they got to win this one and the next one if they want to make it into that Challenger Series final. Otherwise, it'll be an all-United affair for the 2nd Challenger split in a row.
And it's, you know, kind of looking like that early on. Tempo Storm snowballed really hard off Game 2's flex picks this time around at a very, very standard team composition, and GCU has done a great job Sheep does move in, going for that early blitzcrank hook that people love to do level 1. Doesn't quite find it. Solo scouts it out, backs off.
Yeah, Solo was in that tri-brush, didn't see them sneak into the river brush, was able to see blitzcrank flip up on the radar, and he just immediately moved away. So no threat of the hook coming out from level 1. GCU are going to respond by putting down some deep vision from their bot side on the map. Rikara and Madlife both moving in there, trying to scout out where Wiggly is going to be starting on this Rek'Sai.
Most likely starting off on the bot side. Now, one of the things that we've seen multiple times out of Rek'Sai is they take that XP Quint early on. They go for those crazy level 3 ganks, depending on how hard the leash is. And if they go for the Krugs or the Scuttle Crab, you get different timings off of it. It's super annoying to deal with blue side Rek'Sai. I assume Tempo Storm will be looking for something like that. And with the Kalista Blitzcrank, able to set that up potentially with a flash hook. GCU's bot lane is going to have to be very, very careful as we do see that super leash coming in for Wiggly. He can potentially get down to bot lane at around 230 with this at level 3, while the enemy bot lane is level 1.
And not only did get super leash from his bottom lane in addition to Selfie, but also Quas came down. Wound up helping out with that one. So Wiggly going to be taking away that red buff, still has a smite available, so you can wind up getting this big raptor. So this Rek'Sai, we'll see if the creative jungle pathing is going to be enough for Tempo Storm to rocket to a gold lead in the early stages of this game and carry it through, because game number 2, when they had these lane advantages, were able to stay even in gold with GCU. They eventually were able to come out ahead through their Drake control, through the advantages they gained up basically just through CS and moving around the map with their bottom lane. We'll see if Wiggly's able to influence this matchup a little bit earlier on, as he might be going for a bit of an early invade. Puts a ward down. Scuttle Crab has response. This might be that early level 3 you were talking about.
Yeah, he was waiting for that. The super leash actually gets you out too fast to get there right away, so he goes in for that little ward. It's not like it's perfectly timed. It was a little surprising to see him go for that over going to the Krugs to hit the level 3 right away. Now, we talk about the importance of, hold on, level 3 gank coming mid.
Yeah, they want to get on the Fly. Immediately blows the flash, but the flash on Burrow is there. Fly's going to wind up going down to a Victor laser for first blood.
Ooh, really nice path out of Wiggly early on. Doesn't go bot lane, goes up to the mid lane. Fly had taken the E early, and as soon as Selfie saw that, he probably communicated that to Wiggly, saying, hey, if you want to come mid, this is going to be a pretty free gank. They go on to him, and they burst him down from 100 to 0. And during this time, Quas goes up for an invade as well, bullying Santorin out of his topside jungle. Still level 2 to the level 3 of Wiggly. A very tough start here early on for GCU.
Yeah, so Tempo Storm's Rek'Sai pathing has paid off with dividends for first blood, but also giving Quas a bit of room to kind of bully around Santorin on the Sejuani. And now Wiggly going for a bit of a Krug steal, just trying to take away as much experience as possible from Santorin. Does get the passive proc though, and actually going to flash over the wall as well. Still has a red buff, so the slow is there. He's going to get another passive proc there, and Solo comes around, picks up a kill. A little too aggressive, and now it's a red buff Gnar.
That's a situation where we talk about the good communication of Tempo Storm, which is going to be on full display with this gank attempt. Like we said, they know that he has no pool available. They flash into him, knock him up, get that kill. Not quite respecting the potential cheese. And then the really nice answer out of GCU, the fact that Wiggly is deep in their jungle with no flash, fighting over the Krugs. Yeah, the nice collapse that comes in from the rest of the team. Once he tunnels over the wall, the flash followed by Santorin and the collapse by Solo gets him red buff and a kill, which is going to be extremely annoying for the Galio, as if that matchup wasn't difficult enough. Going to have to eat some extra burn out of that Gnar.
So Wiggly getting advantages for his team and then giving away advantage. So Wiggly giveth, Wiggly taketh away. So we'll see if the Rek'Sai is going to be put any much further behind from that one, as he does still have his entire top side of the jungle to take.
Did set Fly further behind than he probably ended up behind. Still very unfortunate, and of course the collateral damage will be how far does this hurt Quas. But the big thing is that mid lane matchup is going to be very tough. We talked about the fact that, generally speaking, the Vladimir doesn't really have priority in that matchup anyways, and might continue to fall behind. Level 3 to level 5 of Selfie. This is a situation where mid lane is completely snowballing out of control just off that early gank.
Yeah, and we saw Fly being able to run away with advantages in the mid lane matchup last game. We'll see if Selfie, now on a carry-centric champion, and Victor, will be able to do so himself, but Santorin's going to be getting a little bit cheeky in his own jungle here as Wiggly tries to go for this continued pressure and invade. He does have the support of Selfie from that mid lane matchup, but Santorin will be able to smite away his own Raptor.
Good secure in his own jungle. GCU has done an all-right job helping Santorin despite the lack of mid lane pressure to make sure that he gets his own camps. And obviously, Santorin himself doing a good job battling over them, not getting pushed out by Wiggly, despite the relatively stronger early game champion of the Rek'Sai. But this is not looking great so far. 20 CS down in the mid lane already.
And we wanted to mention the fact that Revan being subbed in this game number 4, is he going to have the same kind of influence over the bottom side of the map as Freeze did in the lane matchup so far? A couple of CS advantage in their favor, but really the story has been this mid lane match where Selfie is now 20 CS above Fly, and we saw him just with the threat of the laser zoning Fly away from any CS underneath his own tower.
Hit 6 early on, and I mean, this is one of those things where it's difficult to criticize Fly for that early death, just because I've talked about this a couple times. I think the fact that Rek'Sai can do these kind of early aggressive paths, and even blue side in general, is absolutely ridiculous. It's something that needs to get taken care of and has been in the game for far too long, given how strong it is, as we see Solo kind of pulling out Quas on the top side a little bit. But I will continue my rant. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that this has not been addressed yet, the crazy leash that can happen down the bot lane. And you see the difficulties of playing around it, because in order to avoid that kind of pressure early on, you need to seed so many things. The fact that GCU's bot lane had kind of pushed up level 1 actually hurt them, because they can now get that wraparound gank on them. So you kind of need to seed level 1 in your bot lane. And now your mid laner needs to take his defensive ability early on as opposed to another attack ability. Or given the fact that if you didn't even have a defensive mobile mid lane mage, you just died to that almost 100% of the time. And you know, he did walk forward at that point to avoid, you know, or to get his empowered Q off to heal up, and that kind of put him in a bad position. But just this path itself opens up so much pressure on the map. It's insane to try and play around, given the amount of things you need to concede. But that said, maybe they can answer in the mid lane.
Yeah, Santorin's able to take a path of his own. His Fly's actually going to flash after Selfie, who flashes over the wall. Santorin, not yet level 6, does not have his ultimate ability available to lock down on Selfie, so a trade of summoner spells in the mid lane. Actually, the Ghost is used by Fly as well.
A little bit of an overextension there by the side of Fly. He was a little bit hungry to try and get a kill back for himself, but it's the kind of situation that as soon as you get the flash out of Selfie, you back off, let Santorin hit his 6 and make a repeat gank. Now, without his summoners available, he might be prone to getting ganked.
You got no flash and no Hemoplague available, so you have a Sanguine Pool, but it's only going to delay you going down as Selfie picks up his second kill.
Just a moment too late on the Sanguine Pool, still gets knocked up, doesn't quite get anywhere. He ends up going down to that gank again, and there you see instantly punished for the over-aggression just a moment before.
Yeah, so now Tempo Storm, they solidified themselves some early game advantages, and more importantly, it's on the guy who they want to have those early game advantages on in Selfie. So he goes back, upgrades his Hex Core, has picked up a pair of Ionian Boots of Lucidity for the extra cooldown reduction as well. So now Fly, he was on the winning end of a matchup with this Vladimir last time around, but now he's the one getting bullied around, and we'll see what Selfie can do for Tempo Storm to transition this lead.
We talked about how we like the fact that he is now on this Victor pick. Here you see the punish coming in, just all too easy, no flash available. A moment too late on the pool to avoid getting that knock-up given to him. Gets taken down, and Selfie, we talked about being in prime position to carry with a little bit of a standard control mage that scales well into the late game. He also obviously communicated well with Wiggly to set these ganks up and build himself a very nice lead, this time much more focused around the mid lane, which is what we were hoping for. Yeah,
so adaptations already by Tempo Storm. The unique jungle pathing of the Rek'Sai to get the first blood off on the Vladimir. Unique, that's the word I'm going to use for this one. It's very unconventional and maybe a little bit strong, but it's definitely unexpected, so unique is a good way to describe it. Nobody else can really do that. Okay, you could say that. I'm going to say unique. But the mid lane priority now being focused on Selfie, they kind of just let Quas out to dry on the top side of the map, which is very interesting considering that, you know, Wiggly gave over a red buff to Solo to begin with, but Solo hasn't necessarily gotten a huge advantage off of it. You know, Quas has been keeping even in the CS up there. Bottom side of the map is going relatively even as well. Riven being swapped in here for Freeze. Nothing has really gone in favor of GCU, so Rikara, who has been known to be more of a lane-dominant AD carry, at least #1 lane dominant carry in the Challenger Series coming into the postseason, has not gotten the same advantages against this Blitzcrank Kalista lane, so pretty much the Selfie and Wiggly show so far.
It's pretty difficult to really abuse this bot lane by Tempo Storm. The Kalista obviously great in auto trades. You know, Jhin wants to move for the really quick ones where you get in and out, just drop your kind of damage and get out of there. Kalista wants to build up those Ren stacks. The scary thing is, you know, Blitzcrank and Thresh can kind of neutralize each other a little bit early on. Now that they're hitting their 6s, though, that all-in and gank assist that comes in from the Kalista lane starts getting scarier and scarier. So we'll have to see if any of this mid lane pressure snowballs and spills over down to the bot side.
Well, we'll see if Selfie's going to be able to move around the map or if he stays in this mid lane with a blue buff on him just to punish Fly even harder. GCU has moved Mad Life up to this mid lane because we also see Sheep moving up from the bot side of the map as well. And we'll see if there's any sort of pressure, force down this half HP mid lane tower. The Drake that spawned first was once again a Mountain Drake. I believe it's 3 games out of the 4 that have been a Mountain Drake spawning first. So we'll see if they try to prioritize that one a little bit earlier than in the previous matches, or if it's just going to be more about getting the first tower before the Drake control really opens up for Tempo Storm.
Good Scuttle Crab control. Looks like Wiggly's actually going to back off it. Overall, I'd say, you know, to be fair to Fly, he's done a good job of stabilizing since that kind of disastrous early game. Still gave up the 2 kills, but hold on.
Quas actually has to flash away just to get the Justice Punch off. His good trade there by Solo, who just waiting in a brush.
Yeah, really nice play getting the chain CC onto Quas right as his Mega Gnar form was wearing out, and then getting in front of him so he can't Justice Punch to disengage that situation. Gets a lot of good damage on the Quas, forces that flash out. Needs something to go in their favor based off how bad this early game was going. Mad Life now caught a little out of position.
Has to use the box well. Chaos Storm is there, flashes away from Wiggly, who was tunneling forward. Didn't quite have his own flash up just yet, but Mad Life being better safe than sorry as Quas teleports back up to the top lane, so Solo does have the teleport advantage over his solo laner, but Victor has the mid lane priority and more importantly the mid lane party on his side over GCU's mid laner.
Very greedy by Mad Life going for that kind of vision control by himself. Both Santorin and Fly have gone to reset, getting some purchases in, and Mad Life was alone on a solo mission there getting the wards. Ends up having to lose his flash and ultimate. But the nice thing is it will be hard for Tempo Storm to get aggressive around that bot lane, because like you said, they do have the teleport advantage on GCU. Quas can still roam though, has the heroic entrance available to still make some global map plays, and you see him hovering around this mid lane for a potential fight. But he'll have to go back topside soon as Solo has completed his Black Cleaver and is going back up to the top lane.
Tempo Storm has been relentlessly pressuring down this mid lane tower. They want to open up Selfie to move around the map. It's already down to about 1/4 of its HP. Be careful though on the bottom side of the map. While Kalista has finished Berserker's Greaves and picked up pieces for her Billy the Rune King, specifically finishing that Build Border Cutlass, a Duskblade of Drakthar has been completed by GCU's Rakara, so the Jhin is going to have a little bit of extra damage who pops out of a brush and hits you with a 4th shot.
These are some of those power spikes that we were talking about that were so important in this matchup before. Now you see the Duskblade of Drakthar, all things being equal, getting completed before the Blade of the Rune King. A little bit cheaper of an item. So he grabs that one. Gonna have a nice power spike. Also is able to grab another serrated Dirk off that recall. So Rakara in a really nice spot right now. His support down a summoner though, so still a little risky to potentially fight an all-in. Looks like GCU is in a little bit of full stabilization mode right now. They're just focused on sitting at, you know, this small gold deficit right now, even though it's a pretty big one around the mid lane. But stabilize there, you'll be okay. You see it's about 1,000 in the mid lane, but CS advantages elsewhere on the map. You see Solo's relatively far ahead, small advantage for Rakara and Mad Life as well.
Yeah, so the mid lane will be the lane that Tempo Storm wants to try to prioritize since they have the gold lead and the advantages there. But top side is one that GCU wants to go for. And Wiggly waiting around the corner here, waiting to go over the wall, but he is scattered up by Santorin, so both junglers will just back away for the time being. But if Solo is able to keep these advantages he has over Quas, now that he blew that flash because of that brush bait, he was able to just get the CS advantage off the fact that he got one summoner spell out of his opposing top laner. So there's those advantages there. Bot lane is still going relatively even. And the fact of the matter is, while Vladimir was targeted down in the early game, now he's level 9. His transfusion is going to be healing him up extremely well. He's also completed the Spirit Visage against a double AP composition.
Very nice to have that completed. That said, generally speaking, Vladimir's these days do prefer going the Hextech first in a lot of matchups. I'm sure this was a situation where if he was able to go even or ahead, might consider that item, but given that he's behind, and like we said, focus more on stabilization, going for the Spirit Visage, which is still, by you know, a great item for a Vladimir to go.
Well, Wiggly has his Flash and the Unburrow available. We'll see a Fly with both of his summoner spells before he falls victim to that one. But Selfie with his Booba freshly donated over will just be content to just wave clear and spam spells away. Santorin, though, coming out the backside, gets the flash out of Wiggly. The Hemo Plague went down as well. Selfie dropped extremely low. Santorin going to follow up with a quick ultimate from the Sejuani. But they are going to back away because Sheep has shown up from the bot lane to play. It looks like all of Tempo Storm are trying to focus on this very low HP mid tower.
Yeah, there's the mid lane ARAM once again, but this time finally able to break that mid lane turret. A little surprised to see Santorin hold on to the ultimate that long. They could have potentially thrown it at Selfie, but he does have the cleanse available, so he can easily get out of it without losing much. Ends up throwing it at Wiggly, but not enough to deter this push from coming in. They grab the mid lane turret, and they're going to be able to grab the Mountain Dragon now. The stalemate being broken a little bit here by Tempo Storm.
Tempo Storm, after getting that first tower gold, will get the first dragon on the map as well, so they've been able to solidify themselves some advantages here in the early game. Jumps out to about a 1,000 gold advantage in their favor. Goldcoin United, while Drake's have not been what they've been stacking up in the early game, the gold lead have been the ones that have been able to, you know, carry them over and tide them through here. With the Vladimir behind in the mid lane and the lesser successful execution of the Sejuani coming out from Santorin in this game, they find themselves at a gold deficit now at the 15-minute mark.
To be fair to Santorin, it does feel a little bit more like Wiggly has really stepped up this game, had some really great ganks in the mid lane. Selfie as well having a great game. The question is, how do they snowball this over to the side lanes? Because for the most part, those have been going even. Now, completely in GCU's favor with all those roams repeatedly coming mid, it feels like they've been able to grab a little bit more CS in those lanes. And Victor is not the best champion for getting out of laning phase and getting on the map. He can still roam fine, and Selfie has been a good roamer so far in the Challenger Series. He's just going to have to execute it here in the semifinal Game 4 to bring his team to a Game 5, because otherwise it won't be too hard for GCU to kind of keep winning these side lanes if it just ends up with Victor hovering around the mid lane.
Right, and so Goldcoin United will they'll also have to eventually transition these even lanes or slightly ahead lanes into advantages for themselves, as Tempo Storm will be the first ones to move their dual lane to a different lane here. Top side of the map is going to be where they focus, but already the rotation coming in from GCU. Solo's moving down to the bottom side. He has his teleport available, as does Quas. Both of them are going to be channeled. Rakara gets his first taste of some Victor laser. They're taking a lot of damage. Quas teleports in, immediately has to flash away though, but a hook winds up landing down onto Fly, and he's dead before he can even flash or pool. Goldcoin United have to go into full retreat now as the Chaos Storm zones them away.
Great hook out of Sheep and a great rotation out of Tempo Storm. They get that rotation up to the top side, like you said, with their bot lane getting up there right away, but then they make sure not to just make sure it's just them. As hold on, Quas getting caught out a little bit.
Yeah, Quas gets hooked. He's going to get locked up. The taunt winds up landing, so Santorin has to go back in. He gets hooked in, but the Gnar against the wall is Solo picking up a kill here. It's a 4v5 technically, but GCU not looking too bad in this one. Solo going to take the lantern and flash, but he goes down to Selfie. Now it's going to be a follow-up here as Rakara picks up a kill onto Wiggly. Looks like a flash forward from Revan trying to get the Rend onto Mad Life, and he will. So another kill picked up for Tempo Storm.
Really nice job out of both teams in there. GCU finds an opportunity to re-engage as Quas had got caught out. They go a little bit aggressive in that 4v5. Selfie not getting focused down at all. Is able to keep throwing some damage in. So here you see Tempo Storm has the positional advantage. GCU is trying to get underneath their turret, but Fly thinks he's behind Santorin, ends up getting hooked. Chain CC blown up before he can do anything. And after that, they're kind of in full retreat mode. They back away from this turret. Tempo Storm's able to grab that one, but Quas gets a little bit of a greedy recall in here. Or just trying to clear a ward, actually, as he gets hooked out. And then you see some more chain CC trades as the root comes in, followed by some Sejuani stuns. Santorin gets hooked, but is almost able to get out before the Victor, I believe, is the one who's able to find a cleanup kill. And they almost get Sheep as well, forced to flash out. It's, Rek'Sai goes in. They get Solo down, then the last kill onto Mad Life. Ends up a 2-for-2 there after the initial kill onto Fly, meaning it's a 3-for-2 overall. And good job of Selfie being able to kind of snowball that advantage. This is what we were really looking for him to do.
Yeah, Tempo Storm have been able to pick up now 4 kills on this mid lane Victor, so he's 4 out of 5 of their kills. Not too shabby. He's also been able to pick up that top lane tower off the back of that fight, so now Tempo Storm increases to a 2,500 gold lead. Baron will be on the map in just a little bit, so it'll be a little bit sad that our friend the Rift Herald will not be making an appearance for either team in this game, unfortunately. I believe we've taken all 3 other games.
I believe so. The one thing I'll say, though, is that this is kind of reminiscent of Game 2 for Tempo Storm, where early on it felt kind of close, but then they grabbed the first couple turrets. The GCU never really found an opportunity to grab turrets for themselves again. If they weren't able to convert on that kind of side lane play, the scary thing is that with Gnar being ahead of the Galio relatively, significantly, that you can kind of get that frozen mallet. You start getting that 2-item power spike that Gnar is known for. He starts taking turrets on his own. You have to worry about how do we deal with the split pushing Gnar. And the Jhin is then set up in the mid lane. He's the one kind of holding while Vladimir splits into a side lane. You end up in this 1-3-1 that is slightly difficult for Tempo Storm's comp to deal with. But because they were able to successfully execute the snowball, they're in a great position.
Ooh, all the Tempo Stormers standing on the lantern, so Santorin can't quite click it and can't get himself out of there. Instead, he's going to wind up going down himself. He gets a 5th kill of the game.
Good coordination by Tempo Storm to pig pile onto the lantern and make sure that no
Still not a thing! I've heard dog pile, I haven't heard pig pile. I guess in this case it's okay because they pig pile on Sejuani, who has a boar, and that's a pig.
Or it's also okay because it's just the same.
I still don't know. I want to get a fact check on that one if pig pile's the thing. But instead, they're going to not quite pig pile. They're just going to lock up onto Wiggly, who tries to tunnel through, but a good flay from Mad Life knocks him out of it. There's not a lot of follow-up to kill him.
Wiggly didn't even take the tunnel. Mad Life was trying to predict when he would go through it, but a little early on it, and then Wiggly realizes, oh, I'm actually fine. They're backing off me as I'm taking the bot lane turret with my teammates. No need to take this tunnel out.
So GCU now have seeded a bot lane outer tower, which means that all 3 outer towers on the map are down for them. So they will be hard-pressed to find safe areas of the map to farm up for, which Fly still kind of wants to do. You mentioned going for the Spirit Visage early, has picked up a pair of Merc Treads just to mitigate the amount of CC and magic damage being thrown at him. Doesn't necessarily pack the same punch as he did in game number 3 as the Vladimir, because he doesn't have the Hextech Crota Belt. More importantly, hasn't been able to build any ability power whatsoever, so he's just kind of stuck at his base Vladimir values for now. Passer will help out a little bit with that, but he's far from the very fed Vladimir he was in game number 3. And that's exactly what Tempo Storm were hoping for this game. Far
from the fed Vladimir in game 3 and far from the fed Victor in this game. I mean, talk about not having any AP. Victor has plenty. 2-item completed, has the cooldown boots, 9 stacks on his Dark Seal. Tempo Storm here working away on their 2nd Mountain Dragon of the game. This is going to make their already great objective control even better. They're going to be able to force down this Baron, melt it down extremely quickly, and then use the Callista Rend to secure it. Solo getting a little greedy trying to finish this turret off, gets chunked out low.
Almost got it, but not quite. Utilizing this double Mountain Drake effectively as Tempo Storm. They grouped up as multiple members in the mid lane. They know they really can't contest here from GCU. They're going to open up very quickly with the Curtain Call. Zones them away for the time being, and Tempo Storm are content just to sit back and wait for more minions now that the ultimate is down.
Able to buy space for Solo to finally grab their first turret of the game, though. Bring it back a little bit closer to a 3,000 gold deficit, but I'm sure that will get changed again pretty quickly here as Tempo Storm grabs the mid lane.
Callista not known for her prowess in taking down towers, although with the double Mountain Drake will help that with 20% extra damage on there. Now Goldcoin United has seeded a 4th tower of the game. Still about a 3,500 gold lead for Tempo Storm, so 23 minutes in the game, they have a 3,500 gold lead. That's great. It's not as big as some of the leads Goldcoin United have had in this series so far, and a lot of that's going to be that while Solo hasn't necessarily exerted pressure on multiple facets of the map and only just took the first tower of the game for GCU, his gold lead over Quas is still solidified at about 1,000, and the bottom lane matchup is still relatively even. Both Rikara and Revan haven't necessarily been huge deciding factors in these fights for their teams. It's really been about Selfie running away at things on Victor and Fly on Vladimir and not being able to match it.
The scary thing is moving later into this game. While Solo is very far ahead and they're going to put him down the bot lane to draw pressure by Quas, the 4-man core up on the top side of Tempo Storm is so good at taking this Baron that they're going to pull GCU right to it, and it's going to be a relatively easy turn given the fact that they have this Callista, Blitzcrank, and Rek'Sai available to really force this fight. So it's going to be a very tough situation for GCU to be in, despite having the stronger split pusher here already at that 2-item power spike that we were talking about that Nars love to hit.
You see a Knight's Vow between Whitley and Selfie. So he pledges himself to his mid laner. He's gotten extremely far ahead, as if that were not very apparent already. And they're also going to be going, as you mentioned, for that top lane Scuttlecraft control. Quas is actually already up here too, so while Solo can take all the outer towers he wants on the bottom side of the map, which is physically only one. You see that right there. The Baron is the one that's going over to the favor of Tempo Storm, though they will peel off of it. Mad Life was in the area. Actually, Ricard getting chunked out here by Revan, gets the Lantern.
Oh, Lantern.
He got tagged by the Prey Seeker. He's going to flash away from the damage of Wiggly, though, but he may have just condemned Mad Life to death as Revan will finally pick up a kill.
Nice play by Tempo Storm there. Revan was losing the 1v1 to Rikara. Tempo Storm reacts and collapses onto it. Almost a nice outplay by Madlife, getting the Lantern down onto Rikara, but the Praise Seeker hits at max range. They find the pickoff onto Madlife, and now GCU caught totally out of position. Tempo Storm is going to grab a mid lane inhibitor without Baron buff.
Yeah, we had Solo just having to recall. Rikara had to heal, and Fly's still up on the top side of the map. So inhibitor winds up going down 25 minutes into the game. Tempo Storm coming out swinging.
Well, we talked about how there was no Rift Herald this game. Maybe there's no Baron buff either. Tempo Storm's just going to
Then how do we know who wins? This is Challenger Series. Whoever takes the Baron wins the game.
I believe you can tell by whose Nexus explodes. They usually lose. So.
This is why you're on the desk, Mark. This is why I love having you. You're keeping me honest.
And the big thing now is the fact that, you know, actually, not even kidding, Tempo Storm might not need to actually grab a Baron. They could just send 4 people with force round inhibitor. I mean, that's a lot riskier of a way to play it than going for the Baron buff, which I think you'll see them set up for again once they get the reset off. But really tough spot to be in for GCU here. Mid lane matchup just went so bad for them early on.
And so that has spilled over now into, well, not necessarily into other parts of the map, because the mid lane is the one that actually has all the towers down and the inhibitor missing. So Selfie basically has been able to get himself extremely far ahead and really help carry Tempo Storm through this game.
I mean, it is still kind of the spillover from the mid lane, because while there's more mid lane turrets down, the order that they dropped was mid and then top and then bottom and then mid again. So, of course, the fact that they were able to grab all 3 outers makes it, you know, a pretty large gold lead, given the fact that it was close to even before they grabbed that first one in the mid lane.
Now, Tempo Storm, as you mentioned, might not need to take the Baron, but baiting the Baron will guarantee them a fight that they could just use to push up that mid lane to the Nexus towers, where Super Minions will be pushing down in. GCU, though, they're kind of grouped up around this mid lane, pushing away, and actually Quas might get caught out here. Gets locked up by the hook, gets locked up by the Deadly Flourish, tries to flash away at the Justice Punch, will get caught up. At the same time, Tempo Storm is starting this Baron. It's extremely low, flies in the backside, but it will be secured there by Revan. Jin's picked up 1 kill. Now the curtain call comes out. Santorin's chunked down extremely low. The shot's not exactly landing on any priority targets. Wiggly's the one that gets hooked in. Selfie actually about half HP in the back of the fight. But now Nar's gone mini and he's gone down as Selfie goes dominating in this matchup. The Wiggly ultimate and Selfie follow-up is there. Fly's trying to run away from this one with the ghost. Proto belts himself away just to safety. Huge transfusion heal from that blood, the blood lust onto the Grom. Lost my words there, as Fly may eventually lose his life here as Selfie and Wiggly are chasing him down. One last auto attack there, and Selfie's godlike.
I like the idea out of GCU, knowing that they're not going to be able to actually stop this Baron buff. They instead go for a pickoff onto Quas, and it starts out pretty well. They're able to chunk him out really early on. You see that Tempo Storm doesn't know if they should help him or not. They're sticking on the Baron. Fly's wrapping around the backside, and this is actually a nice setup to turn and win this fight. Santorin ults a little bit too early, as the rest of the team was still finishing off onto Galio, so they couldn't actually combo in that damage. That said, they still have a chance to win this because Selfie gets stunned up, but that last 4th shot by Jin just goes wide. If he hits Selfie there, maybe not kill him, but at least force him out of the fight very far. Instead, Selfie is healthy enough to continue in. He runs up, they get a bunch of cleanup kills, and out that they continue up from the top side. They take a top inhibitor. A really nice attempt out of GCU, just a few small mistakes that cost them their opportunity to potentially take that team fight after losing the Baron.
And that team fight going south for GoCoin United may wind up being the game here. As Tempo Storm take that top lane inhibitor, as you mentioned during that replay. Saw a little picture-in-picture. Banner Command Minion's going to be wailing away on the top side tower, but Tempo Storm are going to be the ones that reset. GoCoin United will be taking their first Drake of the game, as it will be an Infernal Drake. Look, Tempo Storm only have 1 lane left on the map. They really have to pressure down. It's going to be that bottom side, and the fact that their opponents are already taking the Dragon, they're A-okay to just pressure away on this bottom tier 2 tower. Quas and Selfie have already grouped up for this. Sheep is over the wall as well. If they catch somebody out here, that could just spell GG for GCU.
Yeah, they have to send members back to the base right now. You see Fly up in the top lane trying to deal with these minions. Not quite a super creep wave yet, apparently, as that's going to be the next one coming in. Quas goes up there to try and escort those minions in, while the other 4 men work down in this bot turret. At this point, Quas' ultimate is probably long enough to reach from mid lane down here. Not quite 16, a little bit behind Solo, and everyone quite a bit behind Selfie.
So we have the last outer tower on the map going down, and Tempo Storm, Baron buff and all. It's really difficult for GCU to try to come back in this one, let alone win this fight, if Tempo Storm even needs to really try and take it. They're just content to stay back here while we have Quas kind of doing his Quas split push thing on the other side, ushering in super minions into the base. Fly pretty much on wave clear duty at this point. Actually, Solo has to go up, deal with the super minions wailing away on that Nexus tower up top. And that means that this bottom lane tower is exposed. They wind up hooking in Santorin. Curtain call comes out already. Solo's going to get a Gnar, but it only really lands on the Sheep. He just gets pulled back in by Revan. Fly protobelts into the fight, has to lantern himself back out. Sheep's taken down pretty low, but Quas is going to get a taunt down onto Solo. He gets locked up in the gravity field after that. With Gnar down, they're going to be charging into the base of GCU. That's the first kill, goes over onto Revan. They haven't exactly dove through anything yet, but they don't need to because super minions are taking that Nexus tower. Gold Coin United has to see the inhibitor tower because of that one, and Tempo Storm setting pace to force a game 5.
Very close fight by GCU. Not that bad at all, actually, but they're just so far behind at this point in terms of map circumstance. The minions are going to end the game for themselves, and GCU able to trade some kills back and forth. 1 for 2 so far, but not enough to deter this push, and Tempo Storm, like you said, going to be taking us to a game 5.
We saw Santorin charge in, flash out, get taunted back, and pulled back into the fray. A Selfie will go legendary 9-0-3 on Victor. This is the kind of Selfie we wanted to see from this performance. While GCU may have had their KDA stats, doesn't matter because the only number that matters anymore is the fact we're going to game 5.
Huge game out of Selfie overall. Some really great gameplay out of Wiggly as well, using that bot side advantage that blue Rek'Sai can have, able to get onto the map extremely early. Doesn't actually go down in the bot lane, goes mid, given that they knew Fly did not have his W up. They get the kill there. And then after that, that's pretty much just a mid lane snowball. There was the one time that we saw they came back to the mid lane for the side of GCU, but Fly got a little over aggressive. Instead of just taking the summoner advantage, goes for the summoner trade, and then instantly punished by Tempo Storm. They regank him, they get a second kill, and then after that, it's off to the races.
Yeah, at that point, Selfie was just really out of control from this mid lane Victor matchup, and we weren't able to see him necessarily dominate from that point forward until they were able to take his tower. Once they took his mid lane tier 1 tower, they took the first Mountain Dragon, and then moved their duo lane up to the top side, where they were able to actually, GCU was close to winning a fight up there as they took that top lane tower 17.5 minutes in, but it was Tempo Storm with the Victor that was way too far ahead at that point, turning it around.
That's the thing, is that Victor definitely not a snowball champion, but from ahead becomes very, very dangerous. So they get the rotation advantage up to the top lane. Fly trying to get underneath the turret, gets hooked out, blown up right away. But from there, you see that at this point, GCU was still relatively close in the game. Tempo Storm's going to be able to grab this turret. Quas gets caught out trying to clear a ward, and it's well played by the frontline members of GCU. Solo's going to be able to hop in here after getting a little bit of a chain CC, get a nice Gnar ultimate off onto 3 members. Rikara throwing in a lot of damage from the backline, but this whole time, Selfie's going to be untouched. They blow up Solo, who just went forward. Last auto attack finishes him off. Selfie continues to run through. Wiggly goes in, kind of trades his life, thinking he might be able to get the execute damage. Not quite the case, but Revan also unfocused during most of this. Gets a couple Ren stacks into Mad Life and pops him as well.
And as we were talking about the fact that it was pretty much the Selfie show, and we kept saying Selfie, Selfie, Selfie.
Yeah, that's why.
You can see his damage right there being a big focal point as to why. But we talked about the fact that they were able to get a kill for Gnar on the top side because Wiggly kind of traded over his life for a couple of Krugs on the top side early on. It gave Gnar an advantage. So Solo had an advantage over Quas. He wasn't able to really push to the furthest extent until after he blew the flash, like around level 9, which is after that red buff expired. Bottom lane's pretty much traded even. There was no real kill threat from the fact that the Kalista and the Blitzcrank lane also just had the ability to turn any of those trades around with a Blitzcrank hook. So because the two side lanes are pretty much even, the mid lane where Selfie was basically dominating Fly was the big just deciding factor, because everything else was pretty much 50-50. The only factor was Selfie was 100% and Fly was basically 0%.
Yeah, and I mean, like we said, the bot and side lane started getting CS advantages, around the 11-12 minute mark. At one point, I think it was Solo had around an 800 gold lead to Selfie's 1,000 gold lead, so it was kind of close, but the pressure was not equal at all. They were able to keep grouping up mid. They take that turret down, and they do a good job moving up to the top lane after grabbing the Mountain Dragon, instantly putting that to use. GCU was a little slow on the play. They had to cut all the way up through mid lane to get underneath the turret. Good job cutting that off. And then GCU still took a couple stabs at this game. They had that one Baron fight where they were almost able to take it. A couple things just went wrong. Santorin ulted probably a little bit too soon. The 4th shot just went a little bit wide, didn't actually ping out onto Selfie. It was a good attempt, but they were so far behind that was a little bit of a miracle fight anyways.
Yeah, and you mentioned the fact that even though Solo's gold lead over Quas was very similar to what Selfie had over Fly in the mid lane. The fact that Tempo Storm played around the fact that Selfie not only was the focal point of the map being in the mid lane, but was the point of strength on their team, whereas GCU had a harder time playing around Solo being their focal point because he was kind of, the split push threat Gnar who would eventually group up with a teleport in team fights. They couldn't necessarily apply pressure on that top side of the map. Their bottom lane was kind of stuck down there, keeping the Kalista and Blitzcrank at bay. They couldn't really rotate them up top and maybe get like this tower trade situation going on. Tempo Storm played around their advantages better.
Right, it's the kind of thing where it's much easier to group up and push around mid lane because you don't actually need to reset and run all the way across the map. You can just cut up through the river, and especially if you're already going for vision control, given that your jungler is ahead too. Rek'Sai a better matchup into Sejuani. We saw a couple times Mad Life got caught out going for vision control, and then they just group up mid, and then you have to respond. You can't necessarily go topside unless you're going for a complete trade, but Galio, a little bit harder to trade against than the very shut down Vladimir.
Yeah, and so with the Vladimir being shut down, the Gnar not being able to really do anything on this side, Golcoin United was really kind of hard pressed in this one. They did still try to go for a couple of engages, but one of the things that was a little lackluster in this composition was, you said during the game, it wasn't necessarily his fault because Fly fell behind extremely early on, but Santorin on the Sejuani pickup was not nearly as effective as he had been on Maokai for 3 games, even in the game that they lost game 2.
Yeah, but like I said, I don't put this on Santorin at all. I mean, the fact that Wiggly found a good gank, Santorin did answer mid lane in what should have just been a summoner advantage for them, and then they can potentially re-gank when he hits 6. Fly gets a little bit greedy, goes too far forward, and then the wave's pushing away from him. Now he has no summoners. Pools a microsecond too late, gets knocked up into the air. He gets killed, and then like I said, after that, Selfie is 100% online as that Victor gets his Lucidity boots and his Hex Core upgrade, I believe, right off that purchase. And if you're getting that at level 7, that's super good for you.
Yeah, so huge power spike from Selfie and a huge performance from a player that we were kind of wondering where he was in Tempo Storm's other games. But we got to take a break. Don't go anywhere, though, because this series is headed for game number 5. In just a few minutes, we'll see if Golcoin United or Tempo Storm claim victory. Fly immediately blows the flash, but the flash on Burrow is there. Fly's going to wind up going down to a Victor laser. He's going to get another passive proc there, and Solo comes around, picks up a kill. You got no flash and no Hemo Plague available, so you have a Sanguine Pool, but it's only going to delay you going down. But GCU not looking too bad in this one. Solo going to take the lantern and flash, but he goes down to Selfie. Now it's going to be a follow-up here. So Ricard picks up a kill onto Wiggly. All the Tempo Stormers standing on the lantern, so Santorin can't quite click it and can't get himself out of there. Instead, he's going to wind up going down. But now Gnar's gone mini, and he's gone down. His Selfie goes dominating in this matchup. We saw Santorin charge in, flash